Cleveland 911, police, ambulance, or fire. Hey, check this out. I just came from McDonald's, right? This broad is trying to break out of the fucking house next door to me. She's like, this motherfucker kidnapped me and my daughter, and we've been in this bitch. Sir, you have to calm down and slow down. Is she still in the street? Yeah, I'm looking at her. She right now? She calling y'all. She on another phone. Cleveland 911, do you need? Hello, police. Do you need police, fire, or ambulance? I need police. Okay, and what's going on there? I've been kidnapped, and I've been for 10 years, and I'm here. I'm free now. I'm across the street. I'm using their phone. Okay, stay there with those neighbors. Talk to the police when they get there. Okay, talk to the police when they get there. Okay, hello? Yeah, talk to the police when they get there. Okay, are they on their way right now? I need them now. We're gonna send them as soon as we get a car open. No, I need them now before he gets back. Can you ask her if she needs an ambulance? Do you need an ambulance? She need everything. She's in a panic, bro. I guess she's been kidnapped. So, put yourself in her shoes. The chilling 911 calls you just heard were made in 2013 after a woman made a daring escape after nearly a decade in captivity. The news shocked not only the Cleveland, Ohio neighborhood where the woman had been held, but the world, as more unbelievable details about the House of Horrors were uncovered. The nightmare first began in 2002 when 21-year-old Michelle Knight left the home of a family member on August 23rd. Michelle had been on her way to a case management meeting about the custody of her 2-year-old son, Joey, when she got lost. While trying to figure out where exactly she was, Michelle was stopped on the street by a man who she quickly recognized as the father of one of her friends. Trusting this man was the worst mistake of her life. Growing up, Michelle had a difficult home life where her family struggled to get by. She spent much of her time helping to care for her siblings, but claimed to have been abused as a child and teen. At only 14, it all became too much for her, and she ran away from home, choosing to live on the streets instead. Eventually, Michelle decided to move back home and return to high school. Then, at 18, Michelle became pregnant, allegedly as a result of an assault. Soon after, she gave birth to her son, Joey. Though she wanted to be the best mother possible for her son, Michelle eventually lost custody of him in 2002 after an incident reportedly involving her mother's boyfriend. Allegedly, the man became intoxicated and fractured Joey's knee. The young boy was then moved from the house and placed in foster care. She was on her way to a meeting, hoping to regain custody of Joey, when 42-year-old Ariel Castro pulled over to offer her a lift to the hearing. Because Michelle knew him casually through one of his 4 children, she agreed. Castro worked as a school bus driver for the Cleveland Metropolitan School District and was a local musician. In the car, the two got a talking, and Castro offered Michelle a puppy. The young mom was thrilled, thinking a puppy would make for a great present to Joey. Castro told her they could pick up the puppy from his house before they continued to the meeting, but there was no puppy. Castro had likely been thinking about abducting someone for a long time. When he saw Michelle walking alone and she agreed to get in the car, he was presented with the perfect opportunity to carry out his fantasy. When they got to Castro's 2207 Seymour Avenue home and Michelle went inside, she had no idea that she would never be allowed to leave. Once in the home, Castro struck. He wrapped an extension cord around her neck, binding her arms and legs, and shoved a sock into her mouth to prevent her from screaming for help. Castro told her, "You're not going to leave for a long time," and began taking off his clothes. Terrified, Michelle started to beg him to let her go, telling him that she needed to get her son. Castro's response was to tear the photo of Joey she carried into tiny pieces. It was the only picture she had of him. He told her that she would never see her son again. He kept her chained in the dark basement for days and put a motorcycle helmet over her head to muffle her screams. This was just the first of repeated unimaginable horrors that Castro inflicted upon Michelle. He assaulted and beat her multiple times a day. To keep her cries from being heard, he played loud music to drown them out. At some point, Castro had allowed Michelle to have a pet dog, a pit bull puppy she named Lobo. But she claimed that when the dog bit him, trying to protect her from him, he broke its neck in front of her. Castro felt a huge rush of power in those first few days with Michelle. He had complete control. He dictated when she could eat, what she wore, where she slept, what items she was allowed to have, and what happened to her own body. Killing the dog in front of her was another show of power and likely a scare tactic as well. He wanted her to be afraid and know that he was in charge. Castro lived alone, so there was no chance of anyone else stumbling upon Michelle hidden there. Though he had 4 children, none of them lived with him. His ex-common-law wife had custody of the children, and she moved out of Castro's home in 1996. It was her mother, Barbara Knight, who filed the missing person report about Michelle. The report describes what she was last seen wearing and states that she had a mental condition and that she confused her surroundings a lot, which may have been what happened just before Castro found her. Despite being kidnapped in broad daylight, the police believed that because Michelle had run away before, she might have done it again. They assumed that because she had lost custody of Joey, she decided to leave. This assumption may have greatly impacted any search efforts to find her. Michelle's case was eventually forgotten. Her name was taken off the missing persons database only 15 months after she was reported missing. Though she didn't know it, her mother still continued to search for her. However, some reports claim that her family made very little attempt to find her. I would give her a big hug and kiss and say, "I love you." You missed her? Yes. When there was no sign of what had happened to Michelle, her son was eventually adopted by another family. On at least one occasion, Michelle tried to escape the house of horrors where Castro kept her confined. During her attempt, her neck and back were hurt so badly that she was afraid to try again. She said, "We had no way to get out of that house. And even if we tried, we got hurt." 7 months after Michelle had been kidnapped and held captive, 16-year-old Amanda Berry got up and got ready for work at a fast food restaurant on April 21, 2003. She thought about calling in since the next day was her 17th birthday. Her entire life would have been different if she hadn't gone to work that day. It was during her walk home, only a few blocks from her house, that everything went horribly wrong. There was a vehicle sitting in a driveway at an angle where she had to go around. Amanda remembered smiling at the people inside the vehicle, a man and his daughter, because the daughter looked familiar to her. She believed it was one of her friends she had known in middle school. But then the vehicle started following her as she walked. The man pulled up to her and asked if she wanted a ride home. Amanda realized that the girl was no longer inside. When Amanda commented that the girl wasn't with the man anymore, he told her that his daughter was at his house and asked Amanda if she wanted to see her. Believing that the man was the father of her friend and therefore trustworthy, Amanda told him yes, a choice she would come to deeply regret. Amanda had gone to school with 2 of Castro's daughters. But what she didn't know was that neither lived with him. In fact, they lived in a different neighborhood with their mother. Though it isn't entirely clear, it appears that Castro had been dropping off one of his daughters before he spotted Amanda and took advantage of the fact that she knew his daughter to lure her to his house. When they arrived at the house on Seymour Avenue, the man told her that the girl, his daughter, must have been in the bath. As they waited, he started to show her around the house, a house she could never be allowed to leave. Castro took Amanda upstairs and showed her where another young woman was fast asleep. Amanda didn't know it at the time, but the other woman was now 22-year-old Michelle Knight. The nightmare only got worse from there. Castro forced Amanda into the next bedroom, where he told her to pull her pants down. Afterward, Amanda's wrists and ankles were bound with tape. Castro went one step further and added a belt over the tape around her ankles. She was chained to a pole in the basement as Castro put a helmet over her head and told her that if she was quiet, he would take her home. It was a lie. The initial rush of power and excitement for Castro after he abducted Michelle had likely faded somewhat after 7 months. So he took Amanda to feel that huge rush again. Just like with Michelle, Amanda happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Castro saw the opportunity, and he acted on it. That first day, Amanda was left in the dark with only a TV for company. As much as she cried and screamed, no one came to save her. Her family reported that she was missing soon after, and she watched on TV in Castro's basement as her mother and sister made pleas for her safe return. Any whereabouts or anything of my daughter, Amanda Berry. Thank you all very much for being here. I appreciate it. Amanda Berry's mother's pleading for anyone with information about her daughter's disappearance to come forward. She's been missing since late April. After being in the house for 4 days, Castro brought Amanda back upstairs where he chained her to a radiator in a bedroom. Eventually, Castro asked her if there was anything she wanted to pass the time. Amanda asked him for something she could write in. He brought her a diary with a tiny lock and key. In one of her first entries, she wrote, "You never know what you got till it's gone. I just can't wait to go home. I'm 17 now, but don't have a life. But he told me I'm young and will go home before summer." Another 2 months. It was another lie. A week after abducting Amanda, Castro called her family to taunt them about how he had taken her. He referred to her as Mandy, a nickname that only those close to her ever used, which especially disturbed her family. Castro also claimed that Amanda wanted to be with him. This call was almost Castro's downfall. He was literally 2 blocks away from being caught. Around this time, the FBI developed technology capable of tracking a cell phone's location, but it only worked if the phone was turned on. Authorities were able to narrow down the call to within 2 blocks of where Castro lived. They staked out the area for weeks, hoping for a sign of Amanda, but Castro never turned the phone back on. And so they eventually gave up. There were thousands of reported sightings of Amanda over the years. There were even times when people reported that she had died, but her family kept hope because her body was never found. Over the years that she was held captive, Amanda addressed almost all of her diary entries to her mother, Luana Miller. She died at 43 in 2006 from heart failure. Though her family said she died of a broken heart after losing Amanda, whom she searched for relentlessly, she never learned what became of her daughter. It isn't known for sure how Amanda found out her mother had died, but the women sometimes had access to a TV or VCR where they frequently saw updates on their own missing person cases. So she may have seen the death announced on the news. Afterward, she still addressed her diary entries to her, but wrote, "Mother in heaven." When Amanda was first taken, Michelle only saw her for a few minutes, but then didn't see her again for months. Castro likely kept the girls separate so they wouldn't be able to band together against him. If they were together when he wasn't around, he wouldn't know what they were discussing, especially what they were saying about him. And this would make him feel like he was not in control. Everything Castro did was about control. Even with 2 women already held hostage in his house, Castro wanted more. A year after he took Amanda, he went looking for another victim. Castro promised Amanda that if he got another girl into the house, then he would finally take her home. It was another lie. Again, Castro was searching for the high of that initial abduction because it had worn off after a year. As time passed, Castro began to anticipate the next abduction. The more he thought about doing it, the more he wanted to. He likely felt a huge thrill and rush of power each time he took a new girl. It seems that with each kidnapping, Castro felt more confident and more dangerous as he captured younger women each time. Just 5 blocks from where Amanda had been taken, Castro ran into someone he knew on April 2, 2004. Castro's daughter, Arlene Castro, was walking home from school with 14-year-old Gina De Jesus. The girls were going to hang out, but when Arlene's mother said no, Gina started on the long walk to her house alone. She called her own mother and told her she was on her way, but she would never make it. Arlene was the last person to see Gina before she went missing. Castro also knew Gina's father, so when his vehicle pulled up next to her on the sidewalk, she wasn't too alarmed to see him. Castro asked Gina if she had seen Arlene, and when she said she had, he asked for her help locating her. The request didn't seem out of the ordinary for the teen, so she agreed and got into the car with him. But Castro didn't take her to find Arlene. Instead, he brought her to his house where he asked her to help him move some equipment. By now, Gina was understandably alarmed. Then Castro's behavior changed. Instead of telling her what equipment he needed help with, he started to groom himself in front of her, trimming his eyebrows, mustache, and nose hairs. He shifted his attention to her and began inappropriately touching her. Gina warned him he could go to jail because she was so young, and he responded that she could leave. However, he had one stipulation. She had to leave out a different door than the one she came in and use the basement door. Likely just feeling relieved that she could leave, Gina didn't ask any questions. Once in the basement, Castro pounced and tried to chain her up. At first, the chains weren't tight enough, and Gina managed to get loose. She tried to run. Castro caught her and overpowered her, but she managed to land a few hard kicks on him. Gina screamed for help, but he had turned up the volume of the radio in his basement and the radio in the living room, so no one could hear her. He managed to tie her up and left her in his basement. The day she went missing, Gina's mother, Nancy Ruiz, called police to report that she had disappeared. Yet investigators didn't immediately look into Gina's disappearance as a missing child because they assumed she may have run away from home. When the search for Gina finally began, something especially twisted happened. Castro joined in the efforts, all the while he knew exactly where Gina was. Because Castro was friends with Gina's father, he helped pass out flyers about her disappearance and even comforted Gina's mother while at a vigil for her a year after she'd gone missing. Castro likely joined the search to gain access to information about the case and any possible leads. He may have also wanted to ensure that he was not a suspect since Gina was last seen with his daughter. And finally, he likely felt excitement that he was helping with the search and that no one but him knew the truth. For the first few weeks that Castro held Gina captive, he mostly left her alone, but on May 7, 2004, he assaulted her for the first time. Horrifically, he continued to do so regularly. He chained up Michelle and Gina together in the same room where they had to share a mattress. They would remain together in that room during their entire captivity. On a few occasions, Michelle tried to intervene when Castro attempted to assault Gina, which resulted in her being assaulted and beaten more often herself. He would assault each of them while the other was still in the room. Castro had kidnapped all 3 women within 20 months in a roughly 5-block area. Inside the home, the women were forced to live in filthy and cramped conditions. They were chained up, tortured, and starved. All suffered from depression, sickness, and bed bugs. During the first winter she was there, Michelle was left naked for months with just a thin sheet to keep warm. She also wasn't allowed to shower for the first 8 months after she was taken. Amanda was kept in a room the size of a closet with a dirty and old mattress. She had to go to the bathroom in a bucket, which was kept in the room with her and smelled terrible. Anytime Castro showed them any kindness, it always came with disturbing conditions. Amanda recalled that whenever he allowed her to shower, she had to shower with him. Castro frequently assaulted the women. In order to muffle any sounds of their cries for help, he used the sound system to play loud music so no one would hear. Amanda said she tried to numb herself, but she secretly kept track of each instance of assault with a number at the top of the pages in her diary, with the hope that one day he would be caught and punished. Michelle became pregnant on 4 or 5 occasions, but Castro forced her to miscarry each pregnancy by beating her so severely. The injuries were so damaging that they left Michelle unable to have any more children. He ensured none could escape by boarding up the windows and locking all of the doors. Castro also psychologically manipulated them, testing them to see if they would try to escape. He sometimes pretended to leave the house and then would sneak back in without the women knowing. That way, they could never really trust that he was gone. He would check that they hadn't tried to leave and warn that if he ever caught them attempting to escape, he would kill them. Other forms of Castro's manipulation were calculated gifts and deprivation, to pit the girls against each other. Castro used a domestic economy to hand out rewards to the women. He would give them cash allowances that they could use to buy food and other necessities, which he could also take away. In order to ensure the women didn't trust each other, he intentionally played mind games with them, often between Amanda and Michelle. When he first took Gina, he gave her the nicest room and let her eat first, which caused some resentment between the women. Buying occasional little gifts for the girls was a manipulation tactic to gain their trust and cooperation. When you have had literally everything taken away from you, such as Michelle, Amanda, and Gina did, a small item takes on a larger meaning. Making sure the girls didn't trust each other was Castro's way of ensuring they didn't join forces against him. It was another form of control. One of the cruelest moments of many cruelties was when Castro told Gina she had to play Russian roulette with him and take turns pointing the gun at each other.